1. I was maybe 22 years old and taking the bus home in a major city. The bus was pretty packed, so I didn't think anything of it when some guy sat down in the empty seat next to me. He had long, kinda greasy black hair, and I could smell alcohol on him as soon as he sat down. He didn't look much older than me. I had my headphones in and was on my phone, but he immediately starts talking to me. "You have Instagram?" I make a show of pulling out my earphones, hoping he'll get the hint that I'm not looking to chat. I told him I didn't, which was a lie. "Yes, you do. I can see the app right there," he says, and taps his finger on the very visible Instagram icon on the screen of my phone. I'm immediately embarrassed that he caught me in such an obvious lie, and I blame that feeling for the incredibly stupid way I proceeded to handle this guy. He starts telling me to add him, explaining that he's a famous rapper and skateboarder, and insisting that I'd love his videos. He then tells me that I can look him up by his name. Taylor Swift. "You mean like the singer?" I ask him. He glares at me and just says, "No, not like the singer." Okay. Getting freaked out, I tell him that I don't really go on Instagram much, but I'd look into adding him when I got home. He then grabs my phone out of my hands and proceeds to open up my Instagram account, look himself up and add himself as my friend, all while continuing to rant about his rap career. At this point, I'm really worried that this guy is insane, and I'm just trying to be as nice as possible in case he turns out to be violent. I'm sitting in the window seat, so he's blocking my ability to get up and move. Still looking back, I wish I'd started some drama when he took my phone. He then hands my phone back to me and asks for my phone number. I, stupidly, too intimidated from getting caught in my last lie, give him my real one. I then insist that the upcoming stop was my own, it wasn't, and exit the bus. For the next few weeks, this guy calls me and leaves voicemails of his terrible, nonsensical raps. I mostly laugh them off, showing the voicemails to some friends and joking about how I met Taylor Swift the rapper. He also keeps adding me to these group texts in which he asks if anyone wants to meet him where he's at. And then all the replies are from people saying things like, "Dude, I don't even know you, stop adding me to these group texts." Maybe a month or two after this encounter, my roommate comes home and tells me she has some news. She works for a yoga studio, and one of her clients, another 20-something woman living in our neighborhood, approached her to warn her about a local creep that had been harassing a friend of hers. Apparently this guy had fixated on her friend after meeting her randomly on the street and started stalking her. Her friend had to get the police involved after this creep shoved a letter through her mail slot into her apartment, and the letter was full of nonsense and threats to find her and hurt her. As I'm sure you've all guessed already, this weirdo referred to himself as Taylor Swift. Mr. Swift was caught by the police a few days later. He turned out to be a homeless guy who really had legally changed his name to Taylor Swift. He also turned out to be in violation of his probation, as he was a convicted rapist who moved to our state without registering as a sex offender. After he was caught, the police raided his phone and found literally hundreds of photos he'd taken secretly of women around our neighborhood, many of whom were teenagers. He did some jail time for this, but was released pretty quickly, because of his name and his apparent determination to continue being a fucking creep. I still see his exploits pop up in the news occasionally. Last I heard, he was stalking women in a city about an hour and a half away from me. For all the My Favorite Murder fans out there, fuck politeness. And creepy Taylor Swift. Let's never meet again. 2. To start, I'm a teenage female. I had my own apartment for the first time, having recently moved to a new city to study. I quickly made friends with a group of fun but somewhat troubled teenagers that spent their days loitering at a local coffee shop. One girl I met in particular is who this story is about. I instantly felt a strong sense of caring about her. She is sweet, bubbly, and the moment I met her remains one of my favorite and most clear memories of her. This girl tells me of a man named Mike who is like a father to her words. He wants to adopt her. Let's note this girl doesn't have an ideal family. Her real father is in jail and she has a very low self-esteem, and he just doesn't give her the care she deserves. I soon met him, and right away I thought he was great. I was being so naive. He was a scary-looking biker in his 50s. He had some awesome tattoos, told stories of great experiences, travel, and seemed quite educated. I thought I was so mature, and didn't think it was odd that we quickly became good friends, as the girl previously mentioned. She felt safe with him, and we both cared for her. We would drive around, talk about everything. I went to him crying, and he made me feel better within a few hours when the boy I was dating cheated on and then dumped me. I felt powerful having a friend like him. His favorite subject was the girl. He had met her a couple of years prior by chance at this coffee shop. She looked exactly like his eldest daughter had at her age. He told me that 2 years prior his oldest daughter out of 3 had committed suicide. The girl had filled a void. I felt for him. I understood. A few months pass, and the girl is staying with him. She is soon to be the legal adoption age, when she can choose to be adopted by him, and is getting more and more excited. Alongside her, I am the person who is closest to him. We spent time talking on the phone, visiting. I slept at his house. I hang out with the girl and am teaching her how to drive. Mike was like a father to me in this new town. He watches out for me. He tells me I am important to him like the girl is. He would do anything for me. Some of the things he does for me includes letting me have a project car in his yard, buying parts for it and helping me work on it, and aggressively confronting a boy who took advantage of me while I was intoxicated. Sorry for the huge setup, but it needs to be understood that I trust and look up to Mike with everything I have. 6 months after meeting him, this girl turns of age to be adopted. I am now staying in a nearby town, not seeing them as much, but still visiting on weekends. I get a call, and he is thrilled to tell me she has asked to be adopted by him, and he wants to have a big party. I am excited and congratulate him. The last time I saw the girl was a few days before this, and just as our first meeting is vivid in my memory, so is our last goodbye. A few days later I hear she has been reported missing and Mike is gone, ignoring my text and eventually deleting his social media. Everyone is in a panic. The girl is adored by everyone, and is as innocent as they come. This is the start of 2 months of major anxiety and guilt and hurt that Mike had left me. I thought he was there for me. For some reason, I still don't think he would do anything to hurt her. He loved her and protected her. Until a couple of weeks later on Facebook, I see a comment on one of the articles the police are now searching for Mike, wanting to question him although he is not a suspect. A girl has commented, "I am Mike's daughter. Can someone please get me in touch with the family immediately? He is dangerous. I do not believe she is safe if she is with him." What the fuck? I message her right away, give her the girl's grandmother's number, and ask her what she means by he's dangerous. As we talk, I learn about a few things. He never had 3 daughters, only 2. The girl I am talking to is the oldest. When she was a child, he sexually abused her, and the girl who I care about so much is the spitting image of his real daughter when she was a teenager. They had a falling out 2 years prior, the time of his oldest daughter's suicide. I also learned that the girl certainly had not wanted to be adopted. She had thought this was too much, however. She was being groomed and enjoyed the gifts, someone who would give her what she wanted, a father figure while hers was not around. I am suddenly thinking about all the red flags. How could I have been so stupid? He had talked about his time in the Angels. He had put a man in the hospital shortly before I met him after a bar argument. He spent his days hanging around this coffee shop with teenagers. I have experiences with creepy and dangerous men of all ages. He totally had me fooled. I think of the times he told me he cared about me as he did her. The times he picked me up drunk from parties, drank at my house. I slept at his house. Never once did he do or say anything inappropriate. But he had always been overly protective. The police and news reporters are calling me almost daily, asking me what I know about him, asking for all these details. I ignore the reporters, fearing he will see me on TV. He is eventually found, questioned, and released, not a suspect. He disappeared again, and I never spoke with him. 2 months after this lovely girl goes missing, her body is found. It is deemed a homicide. This was 1 year ago. There are no leads, and no other info released by police. I have not heard from Mike. There have been many crazy theories since then, lots of speculation. I don't want to believe he did it. And he has not been arrested or made a suspect, but everyone thinks that he is very likely. He lied about many, many things. I learned the truth from his real daughter, and can't possibly include it all here. I wonder where he is. I wonder if one day I'll be minding my business and he will appear. Something in me still doesn't believe he could hurt me. Something else wonders, could it have been my body found? But the worst part is the tremendous guilt I feel. I was with him all the time. I spent time with these two. Why didn't I intervene? I'm so sorry. So old man, let's not meet again, although I do miss you. Talk about internal conflict. 3. So I have this weird luck. Actually, most women in my family have it. I'm sure my grandmother has some stories that would be right at home here. For example, I used to win prizes all the time. There was a robotic cat that jerked and sang Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me. Chocolate with larvae writhing inside its off-brand Aero pockets. A huge and hideous cow-print cell phone from that mooing milk contest that hissed static. A Furby that croaked lemon over and over from the back of my underwear drawer. Real, only 90s kids remember the uncanny stuff. I was the winner chicken dinner, and I loved it. It made me feel powerful, hooked into the overwhelming weirdness of the universe. When I was a kid, it was mostly just your standard cursed objects. But it's different when you're growing up. Once you grow up, it starts to attract things like Pat Evans, or my ex-boyfriend. This story is about both of them. My ex was one of those guys who could fight about anything, and I mean fight. He was persistent, he was eloquent, and he was not above the physical side of tantrums. This is a story for a different subreddit, so I'll summarize. I got sick of being screamed at, called a wide range of melodramatic bluffs, returned his novelty socks, and skipped town. I was pretty sure he was too lazy to follow me. I was almost positive, like 85%. I mean, he couldn't even do his own laundry. There was no way. During the day I believed this, but once it got dark, I would lie in my new bed and run through nightmare scenarios until it got light again. I know leaving the back door open was a bad idea, but it seemed like this kind of fuck you to the luck. Like saying, I triple dog dare you. It made no sense, but it made me feel better and I started sleeping through the night. Not deeply, but it was better than nothing. In October, my sink stopped working, then started to vomit brown noxia. I called my super and she came with the snake. One by one, she extracted 3 knives from my drain, blades up. I think by now I had earned the right to be superstitious. The tarot muttered something about heartbreak and forgiveness, being prepared for bad luck. I tried to ignore it. I went to bed that night, left the back door open, and bulb in the hall on. The human eye is amazing. It can sense minute changes in light, even through closed lids, even if you're asleep. That's how we can feel it when shadows fall. That, and shadows are cold. At around 6 a.m., something cold passed over my face. I sat up, and there was a shape, a tall silhouette in the yellow light of the hall. I screamed, and now I know if I ever get murdered for real, my neighbors will be useless. Because no one came. I screamed again, and the shape swayed. My brain went into overdrive. He was too tall, too skinny, too not calling me an evil cunt. This wasn't the intruder I was expecting. This was an unknown entity, and it was still in my door waving around like one of those used car lot wiggle dancers. I thought peeping toms were supposed to bolt, either away or towards you, but the shape was just standing there, rocking. I decided whoever it was, they were high. This is my neighbor's boyfriend on Ambien. This is a catastrophically drunk McGill student. This is not my ex-boyfriend or a sex murderer. All the duplexes on my block are identical. It was just a hilarious mistake. That was a relief, but they still needed to leave my house. It was time to open a dialogue. Switching between English and French, I peppered them with questions, polite requests to please leave my apartment. More swaying, some unintelligible muttering. I have never been so calm in my life. I felt a serenity that only inexplicable chaos can bring. I felt like I was performing open-heart surgery. I led this guy, a 30-something blonde in light-wash denim, around my apartment, turning on lights so he could see for sure that this was not his furniture. He still seemed skeptical, and incredibly stoned. Neither English nor French was working on him. I found his boots and waved them around, trying to get him interested in putting them on. He wasn't having it. The next part is funnier if I tell you that my ex hated crying, no blubbering allowed. I was trying to manipulate him, using my wiles to evoke his sympathy. I learned how not to cry, even if I was distraught. Now I can't even when I desperately need to. But the intruder didn't know that, and logic was not working on him at this juncture. I screwed up my face and said in my saddest, most plaintive voice, "C'était comment un bête rêve?" which was supposed to mean this is like a nightmare, but sounded more like this is like a beat. We made very emotional and extended eye contact. For the first time, he seemed genuinely sorry for breaking into my house and standing over my sleeping body. He started to put on his boots, which took like 5 minutes. I tied his laces for him. As he was about to leave, I ran a Hail Mary pass. I said, "You have to tell me your name before you go so I can find you." I stuck out my hand and he took it. He looked into my face one last time and said, "Pat Evans." Then he was gone, shambling off into the morning. I looked at my couch. His hat, a stupid pinstripe newsboy, was sitting on the arm cushion. It was flattened. He had been sleeping in my house for God knows how long. I went to the bathroom. He'd pissed in the toilet and forgotten to flush. The calm was eroding now, giving way to hysteria. I had the bizarre impulse to laugh, but I knew if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. I told this story over and over again. For almost 2 years I told men at parties, all of whom solemnly informed me I was lucky not to have been raped or worse. I know, that's the fucking joke. I maintained that he was not a criminal, directed people to our Ambien, did my CBT bullshit exercises and kept my doors locked. I mustered my courage and looked him up on Facebook. He was a swing dancing instructor and proud circus school alumni. My therapist said I should get in touch with him just so I could know for sure what happened. I agreed, but never got around to it. I considered the case cold. But I should have known better. The luck doesn't work that way. This year, at the end of summer, I was getting ready for a bonfire. I had taken my bike to Rona and loaded it up with logs like a really badly designed buggy. I knew if I took the main roads back, I'd crush a toddler's foot or kill a dog. So I inched along the back ruelle, stopping regularly to curse and readjust the logs. Every 20 meters or so they would crash to the ground and ring like bells. I was a block from my house, aka in the back of the identical duplex walk-ups. Pissed off and sweaty when I saw someone taking out their garbage. Someone in a pinstripe newsboy cap, whose silhouette I will never, ever forget. I tried to walk past. I really did. Let sleeping dogs lie. Don't provoke him. I made it 5 steps past him before saying, without turning around, "Tu t'appelles Pat Evans?" He said, "Yeah," and my brain felt like it was on fire. I turned around and a log fell off my bike and rang out. "You came into my house, do you remember doing that?" "What?" 2 years ago you came into my house, you slept on my couch." It was total déjà vu because he gave me the same blank look. That, "Do you mean I don't live here?" fluoride stare. I just stood there waiting for him to fall to his knees and beg forgiveness. He didn't. He shrugged. "Oh yeah, I sleepwalk. I do some crazy stuff sometimes." I guess I must have gone to your house, but je ne le reviens. I asked him if he wanted his hat back. He said no, he'd gotten a new one. I went home and locked the door. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 277. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Not sure how well I did with the French in that last story there, but I tried my best. Okay, I'm going to keep this outro quite short because I've got a few things to do tomorrow. I've got a trip to the hospital for some more phototherapy for the ulceritis. Nearly done now, hopefully. And I allegedly have a bike arriving from Amazon. So I want to get this cleared out of the way so the video is just ready to be uploaded. And when I come home, I'll be able to spend the rest of the day setting up the bike and making sure everything's working okay. Hopefully the weather stays good and I'm able to get out and test it out. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.